My name's Ialien. Today I'm back on another Identity 5 video, and today's video is my Hunter tier list for Season 20. It's been over a year since I did my last tier list, so it was definitely time for a new one. Let's get right into the video. Okay, so before I get into the tier list, I do want to first explain how it works, and also I want to plug my Discord server. The link as always will be in the pinned comment below and in the description below, so go click it and join the server today. As for my tier list, some things are different. As you can tell, there's no gameplay on the screen this time. I decided to do my tier list differently, as in actually just showing the characters and moving it and making this a lot faster of a tier list. I felt like my old tier list, which went on for over an hour or more, were very long, and I wanted to do a more concise tier list while still fully explaining the tiers and the characters, but making it a lot quicker. And that's why I chose to do this method. Also, for people who want to see my Survivor tier list, that will be getting uploaded in the next few days, so make sure to watch out for that one. Now let's explain the tiers. There are 6 tiers: F tier, D tier, B minus tier, A minus tier, A plus tier, and S tier. I did these tiers very specific. The minuses, the pluses, it's for specific reasons. I didn't just put S tier, A tier, B tier, because the state of the current hunter meta in this game is very weak. I would say it's much weaker than a lot of my older tier lists, which is why you don't even see a C tier, because a lot of these hunters just fall straight into D tier. I usually never do F tier in my tier list. In Identity 5, I've really never done an F tier because the developers have done a good job for the most part of making characters, Survivor and Hunter, that don't fall into an unplayable F tier. But recently, with some of the Hunters that have come out, I need to put an F tier here. S minus tier instead of S tier, because I don't feel like there's any S tier Hunters in this game because of how fast Cypher Rush in this game is, how strong the Survivor meta in this game is, and you'll see the Hunters in this tier, they've all been nerfed many times. So maybe before the nerfs they were S tier, but at this time they really aren't. They're more S minus tier. So let's just explain the tiers first. F tier is an unplayable tier. You can, of course, play these hunters in rank because you can play any character in rank. Survivor, Hunter, you can play any character you want in rank, and you can win with them. To basically F tier, basically every tier until maybe top, like top 50 hunters, top 50 Survivor queue. But you can even play these hunters in peak tier and win. Rank really does not matter. Sure, your win rate will be lower from playing these hunters, from playing an F tier hunter instead of an A plus tier hunter, most likely, but in the day you can rank up and win with any hunter. D tier is also unviable and unplayable. It's just slightly better than F tier, but both of these tiers cannot be used in tournaments. They are unviable, and there's too many counters in this game for survivors against them. B minus tier is the edge of viability. B tier and above is viable. B minus and below is unviable. So B minus tier is really the hunters that are the closest to maybe being viable in certain situations. You know, a specific map, specific comp type situation, and you may be able to pass with them. But in most scenarios, B minus tier hunters are not viable in tournaments. A minus tier hunters are obviously viable, as B tier and above is viable. It's just A minus tier hunters usually have flaws that either make strong win hunters inconsistent. so they aren't consistent enough to be used in tournament often, which is why you will rarely see these hunters. Or they are tie-oriented hunters that almost never can win against high-tier survivors in a tournament, which is another reason why you won't see these hunters often in tournament, but they are viable to be used. A plus tier is really a super strong tier of hunters. Whatever this hunter does, whether it's tie oriented, win oriented, they do it at a pretty high level, and the control is in your hands. If you are a good user of an A plus tier hunter facing a good survivor team, let's say it's second round, you get a good map, you can win. Now, if it's maybe forcing it out on a first round situation or on a bad map, bad comp, counters against you, you may lose. But either way, they are more balanced than a minus tier, which is usually something about this character is not making them work. While in A plus tier, it's really the control is in your hands and it's in the survivor's hands. Lastly, S minus tier are the best hunters in this game. These are the only hunters that can consistently beat a top tier survivor team in a tournament. And it doesn't mean that they can't lose, because they definitely can lose. But if you master an S minus tier hunter and you get a decent enough map, decent enough comp, you can use them first round, second round, obviously third round, and you can win with them. So now that we've explained the tiers, let's get into which hunters go in each tier. So first, let's start off with F tier. This is none other than Helenbur. Helenbur is the worst hunter in the game, possibly. It's debatable for me. I think for F tier, what I'm going to do is put all three of these hunters here and then explain the differences between them. Another hunter that is in F tier is Wax Artist. Another hunter that is in F tier is Nightmare. These are the three worst hunters in the game that are F tier. If you try to use them in any tournament situation against a good tournament team, you will lose. A good survivor team in a tournament, it doesn't matter what round it is, you will lose. Now, if this is a weaker survivor team, if they make lots and lots of mistakes, maybe you can tie or even win. But a good survivor team, you will lose. This is hard. Helenbur I have as the worst right now, but I don't know if he's really the worst. They're all around the same level because they all have their own pros and cons. Helenbur has very strong camping. So if he does get that kill, Helenbur can win because his camping is so strong with pretty decent map control that he is able to win games. The issue with him is his chase is just so weak. His early game chase is so weak that a good survivor should always at least 3 cipher, if not 4 cipher kite this hunter. The good thing for Helenbur is he does have his spirit early game, so that will help you if you can trap a survivor in with you in the spirit. That gives you 1 hit, and then you blink, that gives you the second hit. You did that under 80 seconds. Boom, you can have a chance to win the game if you can stuff a rescue. Wax Artist, his early game chase is also very weak, unfortunately. Good survivors should always be able to 3 or 4 cipher kite this hunter, so by the time you get the chair, the game is practically over. Max Presence, Wax Artist is very, very good. He is broken at max presence. The issue is it's so hard to get to max presence against a good survivor team because you have to get hits on them, and that is so difficult to do with his early game presence. On top of that, Wax Artist does not have any map control. He has very little cipher control. He has very weak camping early game. And because of all of that, I would actually put him below Hellenberg. Because while their chases are both bad, Wax Artist is a little better. Hellenberg can snowball the game on the first camp, which is big because you don't have to wait to get all the way fully fed to start snowballing a game. Because the longer you have to wait to start snowballing, the more ciphers are going to get done. Wax Artist most of the time has to wait until he gets to max presence. Hellenberg, as soon as he gets the first camp, he can stuff a save and start snowballing. Wax Artist's first camp is pretty weak. And lastly, it's the newest hunter, Nightmare. Funny enough, I see a lot of low to mid tier struggle with Nightmare and really dislike him. But he's one of those hunters, similar to old Geisha in a way, that once you realize how to kite this hunter, once you learn how to kite him, how to just drop pallets, how to get distance on him, you will always 3 to 4 cipher kite him. And his camping is pretty mediocre. The auto aim part of his attack is bad. You never want to attack the auto aims. If anything, you would want something like and jump to where you can curve it, but he does not have that option. His map presence is pretty good. He has good map presence. He has good cipher control, but it's just getting kills are so hard. Fully fed, he's decent. His chase becomes decent. He's not as good as someone like Wax Artist fully fed, but he becomes decent. And his map control is pretty good. It's one of the better, map controlling hunters in the game, but it's still weaker than someone like Wu Chang. Overall, there's not much of a reason to play Nightmare because he's really Wu Chang, but a lot weaker. When Wu Chang umbrellas, it's a shorter cooldown, 30 seconds compared to 50. He has a status effect, max presence when he umbrellas to you. Nightmare does not. You can umbrella wherever you want on the map, unlike having to teleport to a crow. And Wu Chang has a better hitbox than Nightmare. His first presence, whether it's Soul Siphon from white form or it's the Bell from black form, helps your camping. First camp, Nightmare does not have that. Basically, Wu Chang is just better than Nightmare in most ways, and there's not much reason to play this hunter. Next, let's get into D tier. Let's put all the hunters in D tier. Evil Reptilian. Mad Eyes. And finally, Smiley Face. Okay, so these 3 hunters at one point in time were okay, but the thing is, Mad Eyes has been nerfed so much. Mad Eyes used to be a very strong hunter, but the issue with Mad Eyes now is they've nerfed him so much that he can get bullied way too easily, which really hurts him. He's still a very strong snowball hunter. He can still 4-man you, but because of all the nerfs and all of the counters to Mad Eyes, Doctor, Enchantress, Prospector, Seer, Priestess, Forward, just to name some, there's many more, Coordinator. Mad Eyes is just super hard to play in this current meta where everyone can kite you so long, everyone's getting distance on you. It's so hard to get that kill, and a lot of Mad Eyes really depend on getting a kill on the mechanic and snowballing from there. But even then, a mechanic can take support from a priestess, from an entomologist, blah 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 blah. Mad Eyes is a hard hunter to play. He's always been a hard hunter to play, but the 10 million nerfs he's gotten that have been in the patch notes, that have been shadow nerfs, that haven't been in the patch notes, has really killed him. And while you can still see a God Mad Eyes win games, it is way, way harder than it used to be. Smiley Face is similar Although he has not been nerfed, he recently received a buff. The buff doesn't really do much. The issue with Smiley Face is maps counter him. There are so many maps where they just have too many god palettes, and that counters him hard. There are too many survivors that counter him. Perfumer, Magician, Enchantress, Prospector, and you can keep going for a long time. Even Toy Merchant to a degree. There's a lot. Entomologist. There are a lot of survivors that counter Smiley Face hard. So when you combine the fact that so many survivors have an ability to counter him with the fact of you getting a map that counters him with so many god palettes, it really makes him weak and hard to use. Smiley Face, similar to Mad Eyes, a god clown can still 4-man you, but it's way harder to do. And in tournament, these hunters are nowhere near reliable enough to depend on that. Lastly, it's Evil Reptilian. He's somewhat similar, funny enough, but he's just weird. Evil Reptilian can do a bit of everything. He has decent map control, decent chase, decent camp, but he's not great at anything. He's a jack of all trades, master of none. And in this game, if you don't have some defining feature, that really hurts you. On top of that, Evil Reptilian is a mind game chase hunter. When it comes down to it, his chase with the jump early game is a mind game. If the survivors predict you and they counter the jump and they outplay your jump, they won't die to you. If you get kited, 3 ciphers, what are you really going to do if the rescuer isn't a bot that gets stuffed? What are you going to do at that point? Evil Reptilian is not the worst hunter in the game, not even close. He's a pretty decent hunter, but there's just no reason to really use this hunter, and he's one of the most forgotten, in my opinion, one of the most dead hunters in this game. And I would really like if he received a buff, because he's really never been buffed, although Lizard has been D tier-ish for his entire existence. He's never been buffed. I would like to see him get buffed, but currently constructed, he's mainly a D tier hunter. Let's get into C tier. And start by putting all the hunters. Oh, not C tier, my bad. B minus tier is where I have them. A lot of these hunters could slot to C tier. The bottom end of these hunters that you'll see, because the left is the best and the right is the worst in the tier. So a lot of the hunters all the way to the right could slot into C tier, C plus tier, while the hunters at the left will be basically B minus tier. So we have Ripper, we have Photographer, we have Gamekeeper, we have Violinist, Percy, Undead, Chang, and Feaster. B minus tier, like I said, these are really situational hunters. They most of the time are not very tournament viable, but in some circumstances they can become viable. When you look at hunters like Ripper and Photographer, these hunters may be closer to the C plus tier, while a hunter like Percy and Feaster is really closer to B plus tier. Let's start from the worst and get to the best. We have Ripper. He is an outdated hunter. It's really as simple as that. He is a strong hunter. If he gets a good spawn on a good map against a good chase target, he's actually not bad. Ripper, in some ways, funny enough, is kind of underrated, but he's also really weak at the same time, because he depends a lot on spawns. He does not have any map control. He has no cipher control, but he has decent chase and decent camp. His chase is as good as the survivors allow it to be. His camp is as good as the survivors allow it to be. Ripper is a hunter that you can play at peak tier, you can play at tier 1, and you can win from tier 1 to peak tier with him pretty consistently. But in tournament, usually where you don't want to depend on a good spawn, and where these survivor teams may play characters that counter him hard, like Entomologist and more, along with being able to cipher rush so fast, not getting stuffed on saves, it makes Ripper much harder to play and basically unviable in tournaments. Next we have Photographer. He's the definition of a situational hunter. Photographer is not bad at all. He can be very strong. You can watch some of the top photos play and they will beat even the best survivor teams round 1. But what really hurts him in tournament is communication. It's voice chat. When you're in an organized team and you're able to communicate where he is, where you are, where your images are, you need to be healed up, it really hurts Photo. So while Photo is pretty good in rank where there's lesser communication and it allows you to really dominate survivor teams, once you get to a tournament where they have full knowledge of where everyone is because they're constantly communicating their positions, it makes Photo a lot harder to play, and because of that, he's at the bottom of B- here. Next we have Gamekeeper. Gamekeeper is kind of weird. I know a lot of survivors hate facing him, and he's kind of just one of those hunters, similar to Nightmare, similar to old Geisha, to where if you don't really know how to kite Gamekeeper, you will die fast. But once you do know how to kite Gamekeeper, you will kite him a long time. On top of that, his chase is it's just basically, okay, I hope for a terror shock. If I don't get the terror shock, my chase is nothing. Or you can just take the 0.5 hook and then hit them, take the 1.5 damage, which works too, but that's not a very pressuring chase. His map control is okay. He has infinite hooks, but it's just okay map control. It's not great. So really, Gamekeeper does not excel in anything. And his traps are very good. It's a really nice addition. But once survivors see you put down a trap, or they look ahead of where they're going because they know it's a Gamekeeper, they can purposely go in the opposite directions of the traps and not get stuck on them. So overall, Gamekeeper is not a bad hunter by any means. He's just not a great hunter either. Next we have Violinist. Violinist used to be one of the better hunters in this game before he got nerfed. However, when he did get nerfed and survivors learned how to kite him a lot better, how to dodge notes, how to get distance, that's a big thing. Violinist gets countered by distance and transitional kiting, and a lot of survivors in this meta get a lot of distance. That really hurts Violinist. End of the day, Violinist is the most inconsistent hunter ever for the most part. What usually happens in a chase with him is you're going to get to the open at some point. He's going to put a note and you are running in the open, and it's a 50-50 chance. He's going to click the note down, and if you end up being at the position he predicted you to be, you get hit by the note and you can insta die. If you aren't, the note doesn't hit, you take the regular hit, and then you get more distance on him and you 3 cipher kite. Violinist is not bad. He has decent camp, decent chase. He has weak map control, weak cipher control, but he's just a luck. He takes a lot of skill, don't get me wrong, but his core gameplay can depend a lot on luck, and that's what really hurts Violinist. So while he is a good hunter, he can be very, very inconsistent. Next, we have Wu Chang. Wu Chang has a lot going for him, but the one thing he doesn't have going for him, which really hurts, really the two things he doesn't have going for him, is his early game chase and how hard he can get bullied. In this meta, if you can't get a kill quickly, you're probably going to lose because the ciphers are going by so fast. Also, in this meta, if you can't deal with harassment and bullying, you're also probably going to lose because even if you get that quick kill, the forward is going to come to bully you. The batter is going to come to bully you. The enchantress, the prospector, etc., they are going to come to bully you, and they're going to buy so much time that it's basically like you didn't get a quick kill and you still lose the game. So while Wu Chang has great map control, great cipher control at max presence, he's really broken. He's one of the most fun hunters to play. He gives you so much freedom. The issues of his early game chase and his response to harassment and bullying being so weak, that's what makes him a B- tier hunter, and most of the times not very viable. Of course, on some specific maps, you can maybe have a chance, like Moonlit, Lakeside, Eversleeping, possibly even Leo's, but you play him on Arms, Hospital, Church, you're just going to get kited the entire game. Next, we have Feaster. Feaster was actually a very strong hunter, but they did nerf him about, I believe, like 9-10 months ago. And ever since they nerfed Feaster, they nerfed the attack recovery, they nerfed the tentacle recharge, things like that. The hitbox, once they nerfed that, that really hurt Feaster, because Feaster at his core is kind of a buggy, inconsistent hunter, but he had broken things about him that made him viable. His hitbox being so long, his attack recovery being so fast when you combined it with Berserker for a camp, his tentacle recharge, being able to spam so many tentacles to trap you out of areas, those things were so broken, his tracking ability, that it made him an S tier hunter at times, and then the other times a B tier hunter, but it did give him the ability to really be a strong hunter. But once they nerfed a lot of that, now those broken mechanics are just good mechanics. His hitbox is just good, it's not broken. His attack recovery is good, it's not broken. His tentacle recharge is good, it's not broken. And because of that, when you combine that with all of his shortcomings and his bugginess as well, it just makes him a hunter that can still be used first round and win, or he could be used third round and get 4-man. It just makes him a lot weaker at what he does, and that's why he is B-. The final hunter at B- tier is Undead. Undead, funny enough, used to be, in my opinion, one of the worst hunters in this game, but the meta shift has really helped him become a better hunter. A lot of the survivors in this game focus on two things. If they are a kiter, they transitional kite you. Patient, he gets a lot of distance. Tour merchant, she gets a lot of distance. Acrobat, he gets a lot of distance, and the list goes on. Percy counters this. He counters transitional kiting, which is the meta. He also is not bad at tight kiting. And the second big thing in the survivor meta is support and harassment. The support you get from the forward, the entomologist, the priestess, the batter, the prospector. The list goes on and on. You know what Percy has? He has basically a built-in excitement, which counters the support and the harassment. On top of that, he doesn't have to chair, so the forward is basically useless. And a lot of these meta survivors that you tend to play that work against normal hunters now become a shell of themselves. While forward is arguably the best survivor in this game, and you can play him against meta hunters like Dream Witch, Sculptor, Poland, etc., and he destroys them. You play him against Percy, and he's just an above average Percy kiter with a long decoding debuff. That's it. He's not changing the game. He's not impacting the game. And Percy puts the game, the control of the game, back into the player's hands because they do not have to deal with harassment. They do not have to deal with the bullying that you get from these support characters. All you have to do now is kill people quick, outplay them, outgame sense them, and you win. So you would think, why isn't Percy S tier then? Why isn't he A plus tier? Because Percy does have a lot of shortcomings that actually help the survivors. Not being able to chair makes pressure a lot harder to get as a hunter because you aren't tunneling a survivor into one place. When you chair a survivor, it's forcing one person is on chair and then it's forcing someone else to come to the chair. That gives you an opportunity to pick them apart, to pick them off while they are coming. It gives you a chance to double hit the save. It gives you a chance to terror shock. It gives you a chance to stuff the rescue. It gives you a chance to go to a new target because you know two survivors are currently not decoding, etc. When you lose that ability, you lose a lot of that pressure and a lot of the opportunities you would normally get as a hunter. And because of that, that makes Percy a lot weaker. Percy's chase is good, but it's not insane. Percy can kill someone in 5 seconds, or he can get kited 3 ciphers. But if you get kited 3 ciphers as undead, you are going to lose the game. So you better kill someone quick. His chase is inconsistent, and his pressure is a lot harder to get. Because of those things, with the current meta, the current state of Cypher Rush in this game, and how fast those ciphers are going to go against Percy, that hurts him a lot. And that's why he's at the top of B- tier, really a B to B plus tier hunter, realistically. But he's not an A tier hunter just yet, because he's very situational. But I do expect to see a lot more undeads in Koa, for example, because he does a really good job at countering the meta. Next, we have a minus tier. We have Disciple. We have Nayad, Axeboy, and Bon Guard 26. Let's start with Anne. Anne is pretty decent. There's not a lot to say about Anne. She's a good hunter. She's a really good tie farm. That's it. Anne is a really good tie farm, but you need a lot of survivor mistakes to win with her. A good survivor team will never lose to an Anne. Now, once they start making mistakes, they will lose. Another reason why Anne is weaker is because she's a really good tie farm, but survivors can actually beat her. And it's not that hard. When you're facing a good survivor team, you can beat Anne with support and harassment. If you have a good forward, you have good priestess portals, the Into does a lot. The support overpowers Anne's chase. It stops, while a chase with no support theoretically takes 2 cats, 40-second kill. Now, with all of that support, a chase can take 5 cats and a blink, for example. Realistically, 5 cats, if not longer. Now you're playing on a 5-cat chase, a 6-cat chase. That's a loss. And the worst part is, Anne can't really do anything about it. She can't do anything to counter the support. And once she gets kited, that's just it. Unless you get a lucky stuff on the rescue or a double hit, but it's good top tier survivors can counter her camp not too hard, then you just lost the game. And she's really an autopilot hunter for the most part, is one of the issues with Anne. She's autopilot and you don't have much control. The control of the game is in the survivor's hands. If they are bots, you will win every single game. If they're about your level, you will tie every single game. If they are overpowering you, you will lose every game. There's not much you can do. And the next hunter in A- tier is Nayad. Nayad is pretty strong hunter. She has decent map control, pretty decent cipher control, pretty decent chase, pretty decent camp. She's once again one of these jack of all trades type hunters. But she doesn't excel in anything. And that really hurts her because you need something to excel in to win a game. If you have great camping and you use the camping to snowball, you can win. If you have great cipher control, you can use the pressure you are giving the survivors to win. If you have great chase, you can kill someone in 20 seconds and the pace of the game is already a winning pace for you. If you're just good at everything, what are you going to use to win that game? You are forced to use something like, oh, this game I'm going to win off of Nayad's camping. This game I'm going to win off of Nayad's cipher control. This game I'm going to kill someone in 20 seconds because I trapped them in factory and I insta double hit. And while all of this is possible, it's harder to do so because her chase is just above average. Her camp is just above average. Her map control is above average. So instead of you using an S tier camp to win, you're using a B tier camp to win. Instead of you using a S tier map control to win, you're using a B plus tier map control to win. That's why it's hard for a hunter like Nayad to actually win games and why she ties so much. But because all of your features are above average, it makes it harder for the survivors to exploit something about you to win the game. When your map control, let's say your chase is a D tier chase, now survivors know to win this game, we just need to kite you 3-4 ciphers and we can win. If your camping is D tier, now survivors know they can buy so much time with tide turners, they can rescue off of you every time, and maybe the 4 gives support, so he stuns you on the chair, and now you have so much distance, and because of that, survivors can win the game, etc. Survivors can exploit your poor camp, your poor chase, your poor map control to win the game. But the thing with Nayad is she's above average in all of these things. So what are you going to exploit? Sure, can you kite Nayad 3+ ciphers? You can. But is it easy? No. Sure, can you apply more pressure than she is by having a big map and take advantage of her B+ map control? Yes. But is it as easy as someone like Wax Artist or Ripper with an F tier map control? No, because she can still get around the map decent enough. So because of that, it makes her overall a tie hunter, because while she does not have things she can use to hone in on to win games, she also doesn't have many weaknesses the survivors can exploit for them to win games. So most of the time, it results in a tie. Next, we have Axeboy in A- tier. He's a very, very strong hunter, but he's a very inconsistent hunter. His chase can be S tier or it could be C tier. His camp could be S tier or it could be C tier. And he has pretty B+ map control overall. Axeboy is a very strong hunter. It's just literally, he's inconsistent. Pulling in a fireball is similar to Violinist, to where it's a lot of RNG, it's a lot of randomness. So while Violinist has good chase, but his chase is almost entirely 50-50 RNG, Axeboy's chase, while it takes more skill than Violinist, the control is in your hands more than Violinist, it still is a lot on luck. And if survivors can predict the fireball, if they can just run left to the fireball, then you will lose if they're dodging every single fireball. So because of that, Axeboy is really A- tier hunter. He's a very strong hunter, but he's just a very inconsistent hunter. Lastly, at A- tier, we have Bonbon. Bonbon used to be near S tier, but the issue for Bonbon is the current meta does not fit him well. The current meta is transitional kiters, and transitional kiting counters Bonbon. If you get a lot of distance on Bonbon, you will kite him through ciphers. So when he's trying to kill an acrobat, a patient, etc., it's going to be hard to kill them because you don't have many opportunities to even chain bombs against them because they have so much distance. By the time you start chaining bombs, 50 seconds have already passed in the chase. So obviously, it's going to be a lot harder to now kill them in 60 if your chase really only started at 50 seconds into it. Because of that, Bonbon is still strong. He's still a strong hunter. He still has strong chase and strong camping with no map control. It's just the meta counters him, which is why he's dropped from a borderline S tier hunter to really a top of the line A to A minus tier hunter. Into A plus tier, let's put the hunters at A plus tier. We have Soul Weaver, Geisha, Bloody Queen, and surprisingly, to some people, we have Sculptor at A plus tier. Let's start off with Soul Weaver and move on. Soul Weaver is actually a funny situation here because she used to be an S tier hunter. She used to be one of the most broken hunters in this game, and then she got nerfed a lot of times, and she went all the way down here. She was really here at a solid B tier. She was not bad. She was not awful, but she was just not great either. Recently, Soul Weaver has actually had a resurgence in this meta, and she's been a plus tier. If you look at the top 1 hunter in China server, he's a Soul Weaver main. If you look at the top 1 hunter in Asia server, he's a Soul Weaver main. Both of them had over 200 stars. Both of them had over 20,000 character knowledge points with the character. Soul Weaver is so strong and weak at the same time. I love Soul Weaver because she just has so much in her toolkit. She has good chase, good camp, good map control. So usually you would say, oh, well, she doesn't have, anything to win off of, so she should be a tying hunter. And Soul Weaver at her core is a tying hunter because of this. But the difference is Soul Weaver, her B plus chase, her B plus camp, her B plus map control can all become A plus tier at any given point. You can end up killing someone in Soul Weaver very quickly. Her camping, she can end up using triple stack and berserker and stuff a camp, or she could double web shot you at max presence and stuff a camp. Her map control, if you get a 3 cipher situation on a map like Chinatown or Eversleeping, she can make a web channel to where you can never decode these ciphers. So while these are B plus tier at their aspect, at their core, they can all become A plus tier at any given time, and you can use that to win the game. When you add that on top of her cocooning ability, which counters harassment, which is very good, you add that on top of how her webs charge up early game. So that means if she gets rotated, it doesn't hurt her, because by the time she gets rotated for 30 seconds, it just means whoever she's chasing is going to instantly die because she has so many webs. She counters these things such as rotation and harassment and support. On top of that, she has a projectile that not only slows survivors down, but it does damage to survivors. In game, you can use this to not have to attack them. So if in game, instead of hitting them, then borrowed time goes off and you lose the game, you can endlessly web shot them until they die, and then you can instant attack as soon as they pop the cipher. if they try to, okay, get to a window, we'll vault, vault the window, take the speed boost, and pop it in. Thing about Soul Weaver is you can instantly make a web channel of 3-4 webs, and they will still instantly die because she's so fast that she's actually going to counter their speed. She has so much in her toolkit to use. Let me name an example of one thing. Something niche that Soul Weaver has. If she's camping, right? And you put webs at the chair to decrease your attack recovery speed. Increase your attack recovery speed, decrease the time of the attack recovery. So basically make your attack recovery faster. Let's say it's a mercenary. They elbow pad in. They take your webs because they want to take away your speed boost. They don't want to get hit by the berserker and triple web. So they take the webs, right? Then you web shot them. Let's say they took 2 webs. Then you web shot them. Now they are at 3 webs. Now they save. You do not hit the mercenary. You do not hit the rescuer. You let them save. Now what you do is you hit the survivor they just rescued, right? So now they are dying on tie turner. So you say, oh, the rescuer is gone now, though. You only got 1 web shot. Why did you do that? The rescuer is not gone. The rescuer literally cannot move. Either the rescuer is taking off their webs right in front of you, or they're moving like a snail trying to get away from you. Either way, all you do now that they have these triple webs is you just go up to them, you web shot them, because it's a free web shot. Now that they are triple webbed, you aren't going to miss it. It's too hard to dodge it. Now they've taken 2 web shots, so that's 1, damage that they've taken, and then you just attack them. And now the mercenary or whoever came for the rescue is double hit, and there was nothing they could do about it. And on top of that, the person who got saved off the chair is also dying on tie turner, so you didn't have to sacrifice them getting distance on you for a double hit. It's things like that and so many other things that Soul Weaver has that just makes her a strong hunter. Next, we have Geisha, A+ tier. She recently received a buff. Geisha has most of the time in this game been pretty bad, and now she's really strong, and it's because she counters transitional kiting. That's the meta. Transitional kiters that get distance. Geisha is a chase hunter that gets distance as well. If a patient hooks, it really doesn't matter. Geisha counters patient because she's instantly going to catch up to him. If a toy merchant flies, she's gonna fly with the toy merchant. Geisha counters transitional kiting, and because of that, she's a very strong hunter. She has good map control, good cipher control, and she has very good chase and weak camping. Geisha is hard to kite. That is why she's overall a strong hunter. Is Geisha an S tier hunter? No, she's not even close to S tier, because when you're facing an acrobat, when you're facing an entomologist, a psychologist that knows how to kite a Geisha, they are going to kite you 3 ciphers more than likely. And if you do get kited, it's going to be hard to come back as Geisha. And her 2 downsides is that she has no camping. Her camping is not good. And 2, she gets bullied and harassed very easily. A forward destroys Geisha. A batter destroys Geisha. So you never want to be liable to bullying, because it means the survivors can always come back. Even if someone dies quick, if a forward can come and literally buy 60 seconds of time, it's like that survivor just did a 3 cipher kite. That's why Geisha is not an S tier hunter. But all of her positives more than make up for her negatives, and that's why she's a strong meta A+ tier hunter. Next, we have Bloody Queen. Bloody Queen is just a very good, solid hunter. Her chase, she counters every survivor that does not counter her, which is, oh, well, everyone does that. No. Take someone like Prospector or Enchantress, for example. These are 2 very good kiters. Bloody Queen destroys them. you have to play a character such as Perfumer, Patient, that counter her. They counter the mirror, like Patient and Perfumer, to kite a Bloody Queen. If you play someone like Entomologist, who does not counter the mirror, but she can kite most hunters, you will die in 2 mirrors to Bloody Queen. Because of that, Bloody Queen is tie queen, and you basically, as long as you did not pick Bloody Queen against a team comp that hard counters you, you will always at least tie with her. And to have a hunter in this meta that can basically always tie is a very strong asset to have, especially in tournaments where you see a lot of survivors winning and even 4-manning hunters. Because of that, Bloody Queen is very consistent, she's very solid, and she is a strong A+ tier hunter, and she actually gets banned more than any other hunter in rank. Lastly, we have Sculptor. This may be a debatable spot for a lot of people who feel like she should be S tier. Sculptor used to be S tier for a very long time. She used to be the best hunter in the game, in fact. But the issue with Sculptor is the developer shadow nerfed her. She got nerfed. Her max presence got nerfed to where there's a delay on the max presence. And while that does hurt Sculptor, it does not kill Sculptor. What really hurts Sculptor is the nerf that is not in the patch notes, that cannot be found, but most definitely happened. And that's the shadow nerf to her statue hitbox. The registration of statues when you're chasing a survivor, you can put a statue in a pallet, and before they would walk by the pallet, you put a statue, they would get hit by a statue. Now, if you do that, a lot of the time the statue is not going to count. It's not going to register. And I noticed it right after she got nerfed, and then I talked to other people, I talked to my stream about it, and basically everyone has said yes, they've noticed it, and that she's been shadow nerfed. Sculptor was the most banned hunter in every server, and now she barely gets banned. She basically never gets banned in top tier rank anymore. That's because of the shadow nerf. A simple nerf to her max presence would not make her this much weaker. It's the nerf to her statue hitbox which really hurt Sculptor. On top of that, Sculptor is very weak to harassment and support. She's very weak to that. Forward destroys her. Entomologist destroys her. Batter destroys her. If you get a lot of support on your kite, Priestess portals, into bees, forward stuns, etc., you're going to get kited as a Sculptor a long time. And once you get kited and they kited you 3 ciphers and those 3 ciphers pop and you're cheering, there's not really much you can do but get lucky and stuff a camp. But if it's a good rescuer like a Merc, or if it's a forward that just stuns you on the rescue, or if the into bees come to help out the rescuer, or if it's a cord that just shoots you, then you can't even do that. Because of that, Sculptor is still very good. She still has very good chase. She still has very good camping. She has somewhat map control. The nerfs really affected her hard, and when you add that to the fact that she's very weak against harassment and support, it just makes her an A+ tier hunter, and she's not really even close to S tier. Finally, for the 2 S tier hunters, the 2 best hunters in this game, it's the Breaking Will and it's Dream Witch. As you can see, Dream Witch is the best hunter in this game. But let's first talk about Poland. Poland and Dream Witch are very similar. They are 4-man hunters. If you are a god Poland, if you are a god Dream Witch, and you get a decent map, you can 4-man a survivor team. Because you have so much map control and so much snowball ability that you can win. They both have great map and cipher control, which is what wins you games in this meta. both of them also have decent enough chases and decent enough camps to apply pressure early and mid game, and then they have excellent map and cipher control to win games in game. That's how they win. They are both great snowballing hunters. The issue with these hunters is they have a lot of counters in terms of maps, in terms of characters, and also the biggest thing that counters these two hunters is Cypher Rush. Cypher Rush counters Dream Witch and the Breaking Will. Both of them have also received large nerfs. Breaking Will has been nerfed, I believe, about 4 times. Dream Witch has been nerfed so many times, it's hard to keep count at this point. But so much of these hunters have been nerfed that it's made, while they would usually be S tier, and at certain points of this game, Dream Witch or Poland when he first came out were even S plus tier. All of these nerfs, with the on top of the Survivor meta being stronger and Cypher Rush being more just overall more pressuring most of the time to hunters, it has turned these S to S plus tier hunters really into S minus tier hunters. But end of the day, if you want to win first round in a tournament, that's basically the only, these two are basically the only options you have. That does it for my hunter tier list for season 20. I'll be making a survivor tier list soon in the next few days. I wanted this video to, be more concise and quicker, and it ended up being 40-50 minutes. So mission failed. But if you are interested in my survivor tier list, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, because that video will be dropping in the next few days. And that's all for the video. Bye.